Hello and welcome back. In today's listening practice, we're refocusing on intermediate English words and phrases that you hear all the time in real conversations, at work and in everyday situations. This is not a grammar lesson and not a funny story. The goal here is simple: to help you recognize useful English naturally without stopping, translating, or overthinking. Just listen and follow the meaning. Let's start with a phrase you hear constantly in English. It depends. This phrase is everywhere. People use it when there is no single clear answer. For example, someone asks, "Is this job easy?" And the honest answer is often, "It depends." It depends on the situation, the people, or the conditions. This phrase is neutral, flexible, and very natural, and using it correctly makes your English sound more realistic. Another very common expression is, "I'm not sure." At intermediate level, many learners still say, "I don't know" too often. "I'm not sure" sounds softer and more thoughtful. It's useful when you want to keep the conversation open instead of stopping it. You don't need full certainty to use English well, and this phrase gives you time to think. You'll also hear "as far as I know" quite often. This phrase means "based on the information I have right now." It's perfect when you want to give an answer without sounding too confident. English speakers use this expression to protect themselves from being wrong, and it's extremely common in professional and casual conversations. Now, think about how people talk about plans. Instead of saying "I will," English speakers often say "I'm planning to," "I'm thinking about," or "I might." These phrases show flexibility. They sound more natural than strong promises, and they reflect how people really think and speak. As you listen, notice something important. None of these phrases are difficult, but they are powerful. Intermediate English is not about big, impressive words. It's about using simple language in the right way at the right time. In the next part, we'll continue with more everyday expressions, including useful phrasal verbs and sentence patterns that help you sound calm, clear, and confident in English. Let's continue with more intermediate English words and phrases that appear naturally in everyday conversations. These expressions help you sound clearer, calmer, and more confident, especially when you don't want to sound too direct or too uncertain. A very useful phrase is "in general." English speakers use this when they are talking about something in a broad way, not every detail. For example, someone might say, "In general, people prefer flexible working hours." This phrase helps you give an opinion without sounding absolute, and it's very common in discussions, presentations, and casual conversations. Another expression you hear often is "at the moment." This means now, but in a temporary way. Saying "I'm busy at the moment" sounds more natural than just "I'm busy." It tells the listener that the situation can change. English speakers like to leave space for flexibility, and this phrase does exactly that. Now, let's talk about the phrase "it turns out." This expression is used when the result is different from what you expected. For example, "I thought the meeting would be short, but it turns out it lasted 2 hours." This phrase is extremely common in storytelling and daily conversation, and it helps you connect ideas smoothly. You should also feel comfortable using for a while. This phrase means a short or medium period of time, but not exactly defined. People say, "I'll stay here for a while," or "I worked there for a while." English doesn't always need exact time information, and this phrase is perfect when details are not important. Another important structure is the reason is that. This is a simple way to explain something clearly. Instead of long explanations, English often prefers direct connections. For example, the reason I'm late is that there was a lot of traffic, clear, calm, and easy to follow. Let's move to a few very common phrasal verbs that intermediate learners should recognize. One of the most useful is figure out. It means to understand or solve something. You'll hear sentences like, "I need to figure out how this works." This phrasal verb appears everywhere, from work conversations to casual chats. Another one is run into, which means to meet someone unexpectedly or to experience a problem. For example, "I ran into an old friend yesterday," or "we ran into some issues." Understanding this phrase helps you follow real conversations much more easily. As you listen, notice how these phrases don't stand alone. They connect ideas, soften opinions, and make English flow more naturally. This is what intermediate English is really about. Not memorizing lists, but recognizing patterns. Before we continue, take a moment and think about which of these phrases you already use and which ones you usually avoid. Awareness is the first step to improvement. In the next part, we'll continue with more expressions that help you explain opinions, describe changes, and sound more natural in both professional and everyday English. Let us move into the final part with a few more expressions that are essential at the intermediate level, especially when you want to explain ideas, changes, or personal opinions clearly. These phrases appear constantly in real English, and recognizing them while listening will make conversations much easier to follow. One very useful expression is "from my point of view." This phrase helps you share an opinion without sounding too strong or emotional. For example, "from my point of view." This solution makes sense. English often prefers opinions that sound calm and reasonable, and this phrase helps you achieve that tone. Another common structure is "be used to." This phrase is often confusing for learners, but it's extremely useful. When someone says, "I'm used to working late," it means the situation feels normal to them. This structure appears often when people talk about habits, changes, and daily routines. You should also listen carefully for the phrase "in the long run." This expression refers to results over time, not immediately. For example, in the long run, learning English will help your career. It's a phrase you'll hear in discussions about goals, decisions, and future plans. Now, let's look at how English speakers talk about changes. A very natural phrase is "has become." Instead of saying "is now," people often say "work has become more flexible" or "life has become busier." This structure sounds smooth and natural in spoken English. Another important expression is "it makes sense." This phrase is everywhere. People use it to agree, to show understanding, or to accept an explanation. You don't need a long response. Sometimes simply saying "that makes sense" is enough to sound fluent and engaged in a conversation. As you listen to English more and more, you'll notice that these phrases repeat constantly. That repetition is your advantage. You don't need to learn everything at once. Just recognizing these expressions while listening is already progress. Before we finish, remember this. Intermediate English is not about perfection. It's about clarity, comfort, and consistency. If you can follow the main idea, respond calmly, and express basic opinions, you are already communicating successfully. If this listening practice helped you, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more intermediate English listening content. Keep listening regularly, trust the process, and your understanding will continue to grow naturally. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.